Legendary Passages, Episode 3x, The Son of Amphitryon. A Summary of Heracles from E.M. Berens Handbook of Mythology. Last time, we reviewed the origin of Heracles. This time, we would be covering an alternate translation of the Library of Apollodorus, but as it happens, none could be found. So instead, we shall cover a public domain mythology book covering the early days of Heracles. First, the text covers events from last episode. Heracles is born and abandoned, nursed by Hera, and strangles snakes. Growing up, Heracles has many tutors. Once he made a mistake, and Linus, his music teacher, smacked him. Angry, he killed him and was sent away to the countryside. Alone in the forest, two young women named Vice and Virtue approached him. Later, he killed the Cithaeron Lion and took up its mantle. After killing Erginus, king of the Minyans, Heracles learned that his father Amphitryon had died in the battle. Lastly, we come to Eurystheus. As Heracles' mother went into labor, Zeus announced that the next grandson of Perseus to be born would inherit his kingdom. So Hera delayed his birth, and Eurystheus was born next, and grew up to become High King. When Eurystheus ordered his cousin to perform labors, Heracles fell into depression and then into madness, killing his own children. Having nothing left to lose, he went to work for Eurystheus. The Son of Amphitryon, a legendary passage from the myths and legends of Greece and Rome, written by E.M. Berens. Heracles, the most renowned hero of antiquity, was the son of Zeus and Alcmene, and the great-grandson of Perseus. At the time of his birth, Alcmene was living at Thebes with her husband Amphitryon, and thus the infant Heracles was born in the palace of his stepfather. Aware of the animosity with which Hera persecuted all those who rivaled her in the affections of Zeus, Alcmene, fearful lest this hatred should be visited on her innocent child, entrusted him, soon after his birth, to the care of a faithful servant, with instructions to expose him in a certain field, and there leave him, feeling assured that the divine offspring of Zeus would not long remain without the protection of the gods. Soon after the child had been thus abandoned, Hera and Pallas Athene happened to pass by the field, and were attracted by its cries. Athene pityingly took up the infant in her arms, and prevailed upon the Queen of Heaven to put it to her breast. But no sooner had she done so, than the child, causing her pain, she angrily threw him to the ground, and left the spot. Athene, moved with compassion, carried him to Alcmene, and entreated her kind offices on behalf of the poor little foundling. Alcmene at once recognized her child, and joyfully accepted the charge. Soon afterwards Hera, to her extreme annoyance, discovered whom she had nursed, and became filled with jealous rage. She now sent two venomous snakes into the chamber of Alcmene, which crept, unperceived by the nurses, to the cradle of the sleeping child. He awoke with a cry, and grasping a snake in each hand, strangled them both. Alcmene and her attendants, whom the cry of the child had awakened, rushed to the cradle, where, to their astonishment and terror, they beheld two reptiles dead in the hands of the infant Heracles. Amphitryon was also attracted to the chamber by the commotion, and when he beheld this astounding proof of supernatural strength, he declared that the child must have been sent to him as a special gift from Zeus. He accordingly consulted the famous seer Tiresias, who now informed him of the divine origin of his stepson, and prognosticated for him a great and distinguished future. When Amphitryon heard the noble destiny which awaited the child entrusted to his care, he resolved to educate him in the manner worthy of his future career. At a suitable age he taught himself how to guide a chariot, Eurytus how to handle the bow, Autolycus dexterity in wrestling and boxing, and Castor the art of armed warfare, while Linus, the son of Apollo, instructed him in music and letters. Heracles was an apt pupil, but undue harshness was intolerable to his high spirit. And old Linus, who was not the gentlest of teachers, one day corrected him with blows, whereupon the boy angrily took up his lyre and, with a stroke of his powerful arm, killed his tutor on the spot. Apprehensive lest the ungovernable temper of the youth might again involve him in similar acts of violence, Amphitryon sent him into the country, where he placed him under the charge of one of his most trusted herdsmen. Here, as he grew up to manhood, his extraordinary stature and strength became the wonder and admiration of all beholders. His aim, whether with spear, lance, or bow, was unerring, and at the age of 18 he was considered to be the strongest as well as the most beautiful youth in all Greece. Heracles felt that the time had now arrived when it became necessary to decide for himself how to make use of his extraordinary powers with which he had been endowed by the gods. In order to meditate in solitude on this all-important subject, he repaired to a lonely and secluded spot in the heart of the forest. Here, two females of great beauty appeared to him. One was vice, the other virtue. The former was full of artificial wiles and fascinating arts, her face painted and her dress gaudy and attractive, whilst the latter was of noble bearing and modest mien, her robes of spotless purity. Vice stepped forward and addressed him. "If you will walk in my paths and make me your friend, your life shall be one round of pleasure and enjoyment. You shall taste of every delight which can be procured on earth. The choicest viands, the most delicious wines, the most luxuriant of couches shall ever be at your disposal, and all this without any exertion on your part, either physical or mental." Virtue now spoke in her turn. "If you will follow me and be my friend, I promise you the reward of good conscience and the love and respect of your fellowmen. I cannot undertake to smooth your path with roses, or give you a life of idleness and pleasure, for you must know that the gods grant no good and desirable thing that is not earned by labor. As you sow, so must you reap." Heracles listened patiently and attentively to both speakers, and then, after mature deliberation, decided to follow in the paths of virtue, and henceforth to honor the gods, and devote his life to the service of his country. Full of these noble resolves, he sought once more his rural home, where he was informed that on Mount Cithaeron, at the foot of which the herds of Amphitryon were grazing, a ferocious lion had fixed his lair, and was committing such frightful ravages among the flocks and herds that he had become the scourge and terror of the whole neighborhood. Heracles at once armed himself and ascended the mountain, where he soon caught sight of the lion, and rushing at him with his sword, succeeded in killing him. The hide of the animal he wore ever afterwards over his shoulders, and the head served him as a helmet. As he was returning from this, his first exploit, he met the heralds of Erginus, the king of the Minyans, who were proceeding to Thebes to demand their annual tribute of 100 oxen. Indignant at the humiliation of his native city, Heracles mutilated the heralds and sent them back, with ropes round their necks, to their royal master. Erginus was so incensed at the ill treatment of his messengers that he collected an army and appeared before the gates of Thebes, demanding the surrender of Heracles. Creon, who was at this time the king of Thebes, fearing the consequences of a refusal, was about to yield when the hero, with an assistance of Amphitryon and a band of brave youths, advanced against the Minyans. Heracles took possession of a narrow defile through which the enemy were compelled to pass, and as they entered the pass the Thebans fell upon them, killed their king Erginus, and completely routed them. In this engagement, Amphitryon, the kind friend and foster father of Heracles, lost his life. The hero now advanced upon Orchomenus, the capital of the Minyans, where he burned the royal castle and sacked the town. After this signal victory, all Greece rang with the fame of the young hero, and Creon, in gratitude for his great services, bestowed upon him his daughter Megara in marriage. The Olympian gods testified their appreciation of his valor by sending him presents. Hermes gave him a sword, Phoebus Apollo a bundle of arrows, Hephaestus a golden quiver, and Athene a coat of leather. And now it will be necessary to retrace our steps. Just before the birth of Heracles, Zeus, in an assembly of the gods, exultingly declared that the child who should be born on that day to the house of Perseus should rule over all his race. When Hera heard her lord's boastful announcement, she knew well that it was for the child of the hated Alcmena that this brilliant destiny was designed, and in order to rob the son of her rival of his rights, she called her aid to the goddess Eileithyia, who retarded the birth of Heracles, and caused his cousin Eurystheus, another grandson of Perseus, to precede him into the world. And thus, as the word of the mighty Zeus was irrevocable, Heracles became the subject and servant of his cousin Eurystheus. When, after a splendid victory over Erginus, the fame of Heracles spread throughout Greece, Eurystheus, who had become king of Mycenae, jealous of the reputation of the young hero, asserted his rights and commanded him to undertake for him various difficult tasks. But the proud spirit of the hero rebelled against this humiliation, and he was about to refuse compliance when Zeus appeared to him and desired him not to rebel against the fates. Heracles now repaired to Delphi in order to consult the oracle, and received the answer that after performing 10 labors for his cousin Eurystheus, his servitude would be at an end. Soon afterwards, Heracles fell into a state of the deepest melancholy, and through the influence of his inveterate enemy, the goddess Hera, this despondency developed into raving madness, in which condition he killed his own children. When he at length regained his reason, he was so horrified and grieved at what he had done, that he shut himself up in his chamber, and avoided all intercourse with men. But in his loneliness and seclusion, the conviction that work would be the best means of procuring oblivion of the past decided him to enter, without delay, upon the tasks appointed him by Eurystheus.